The Dutch government supports the startup ecosystem of the Netherlands in various ways and helps entrepreneurs with their internationalization. On behalf of the entire team at the Dutch Consulate in San Francisco and the Holland in the Valley community, we welcome you to this webinar about doing business on the West Coast. And all of this in support of your upcoming digital mission to the West Coast. My name is Maaike Doyer. I'm the startup liaison for the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the US, based out of San Francisco, the Mecca for innovation and entrepreneurship. In response to the COVID outbreak, the Consulate pivoted its activities and launched the e-Consulate, allowing us to offer our services fully online. A key part of this e-Consulate is to offer you a series of webinars and a series of digital missions to the US West Coast. These digital trade missions offer lots of opportunity to interact with our Holland in the Valley community and also offer practical tips and information so that you can navigate in the business world of the US. We're here to support your dreams and your aspirations. Our main goal is to set you up for success, also beyond the scope of the digital mission that you will participate in. The activities and the programs that we engage in are fully mentor-driven. Holland in the Valley is a public-private collaboration by the Dutch Consulate that opens the door to a unique network of corporate partners, investors, entrepreneurs, potential clients, and mentors. Our aim is to provide you access to talent, access to capital, access to markets, knowledge, and government relationships so that you can grow and scale to the US. Our network is fully available online. Now, local mentors play a key role in our community to help make the transition to the Bay Area more seamless. We provide entrepreneurs with a valuable outside-in perspective by sharing in-depth knowledge about the situation on the ground in the Bay Area. The experts in our network are familiar with both the Dutch and the American business culture, the mindset, and the network. And during the mission, we will facilitate ample opportunity for matchmaking with our US partners. In helping you prepare for the digital mission, this webinar is meant to give you more insights into the do's and don'ts of doing business in Silicon Valley and highlight some of the differences of doing business compared to Europe and the Netherlands. I'm very pleased to moderate today's webinar on business culture with three great partners and mentors from our Holland in the Valley community, all of whom have been very successful in the Bay Area for many years. I want to thank all the speakers for today for their willingness to share their insights with us. Let me introduce the speakers to you. Maaike Doyer, founder and CFO of Business Models Inc. USA, and one of the originators really of the Business Model Canvas. The Business Model Canvas that has helped thousands of startups and SMEs innovate and find new ways of doing business. Maaike is also a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at various business schools and universities. Mentoring, Maaike, is really in your blood, so to say. Maaike is also part of the Holland in the Valley Entrepreneurship Committee. Maaike, can you give us a quick intro about your company and yourself?
Yes, good to be here today. Indeed, so my name is Maaike Doyer, or I mean, that's a hard name to pronounce here in the US. So we all say Maaike here just to make it a little bit easier for the Americans. And indeed, I moved 5 years ago from the Netherlands to the United States to bring my company Business Models Inc. To this part of the world. And what we do at Business Models Inc., we help corporates and startups to really innovate their business model and to go faster and bolder with their innovations.
Then the next speaker is Gerald Brady. Gerald is Managing Director at our Holland in the Valley partner, Silicon Valley Bank, responsible for the Silicon Valley Bank network. Previously, Gerald also worked as a venture capital investor, but also as a corporate venture director. So Gerald has seen the different perspectives in the Valley, and he interacted with foreign entrepreneurs looking to make it in the Bay. So your network is pretty much extensive. Gerald, can you add a bit more about yourself?
Thanks, Michael. And good morning. Welcome to Silicon Valley. So you can probably hear my accent is British. I moved here 20 years ago. I was working for a European venture capital firm, 3i, and moved here in 2000. So saw the peak of the market and then the bust. And then I spent a number of years at Siemens running the early stage venture group for Siemens here in the States. but obviously working with a lot of companies in Europe over the years. And then I've been with Silicon Valley Bank for the last 10 years as well. And for those of you that don't know Silicon Valley Bank, we're focused exclusively on what we call the innovation economy, focused on companies in technology, healthcare, life sciences, and what we call energy and resource innovation. And we bank about half of all venture-backed companies in the States today.
Then Thomas Volker, founder and CEO of LEAP, with their ambition to build the green resilient grid of the future. Now, Thomas has been active in the energy space for many years and can offer this perspective of a successful startup or scale-up. So he speaks from his own experiences and what he shared with the other Dutch founders in the Bay. Thomas, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me on the webinar. Indeed, I've been in San Francisco now for 9 years, so time flies by. LEAP is a new company that really jumped into the advent of electrification of consumption and the need for more variability on the grid. We recently raised a Series A, and I'm happy to share more about that experience. We're a happy customer of Silicon Valley Bank as well. LEAP started in 2017. We're about 30 people now, spread out over 2 continents and 7 time zones. So I'm happy to tell more about how we set it up and how we manage that, especially in an extremely competitive city as San Francisco.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for being here to share your insights as an entrepreneur. So let's start. Gerald, can I start with you? Can I start by asking you to give a banker's perspective on Silicon Valley, but also highlight a bit of the current situation from your perspective, and what does Silicon Valley Bank really represent in your role in the entrepreneurial community?
Sure. So let me just share a slide that'll give a little bit of context to SVB and what we do and the sectors that we cover. And while you'll see the slide here, I'll talk a little bit about how we see the environment. So we've been around for the last 37 years and originally started in the technology sector and then expanded into the sectors you can see here. So we cover pretty much all of the industry sectors that you can imagine venture capital is deploying into today. And this continues to evolve and emerge. So if you think about companies in the food sector, for example, like Beyond Meat, this is a sector I would say that we didn't see venture capital go to 10 years ago and is now a thriving part of the ecosystem. We also bank the funds as well, and then you'll see that we also are a bank to the premium wine industry. And so there's innovation in all of these sectors, and that's the common thread for us. And we've expanded internationally over the last 37 years, so continue to expand as well. So last year we opened in Denmark, we have offices in the UK and Ireland, Germany as well, Israel and China. So we're really in the major innovation hubs around the world. And for us, what we've seen in the last 3 months has been, in some ways, a shock to the system, and in some ways, things that we've seen before. And I think one of the things to bear in mind is in 37 years, our experience has been entrepreneurs are incredibly resilient. They are there through good times and bad, and they historically have just seen every bump in the road that you can imagine. And so one of the things that is also worth bearing in mind, and again, I'll say a separate slide here, Michael, is we've seen the best companies come and be created in the worst times. And I think that's really important to think about, that, you know, as you'll see here, and hopefully this has come up, if you look at the crashes in 2000, 2001, and then 08 and 09, you were seeing companies like Square and Pinterest and Slack and Okta be created out of the last financial crisis, Airbnb and Uber. So we've had this history of great innovation coming out of really challenging times. And I think our confidence is continuing to be high that we will see great companies be created in tough times as well. The other thing I would say that is important maybe for folks to bear in mind is that investors want to do deals. And so that I think the last couple of weeks in March, certainly here in the States, was, I think, where we saw just a pause in activity. And then since then, we've continued to hear and see stories of companies being founded, deals being done, and investors putting money into companies. The way deals are being done is definitely different. We're hearing many stories now of investors who have only ever met the management teams and founders via Zoom today. And I think that's become just an acceptable part of business where, you know, the days of meeting in person are clearly on hold for now. And I think the comfort factor of doing deals in a virtual environment is also changing. And I'd also say that out of every crisis, opportunity is created. And so if you think about the success of Zoom or the impetus around collaboration software, that's accelerated like never before. And so one final quote I'll leave with you is, we've heard many companies talk about they've done 5 years worth of digital transformation in the last 2 months. And so I think that's really important to bear in mind, that, you know, there is opportunity out of tough times. And I do think that we'll see many entrepreneurs build amazing companies through these coming months.
Now, trust is always an important factor in a relationship, and banks know this more than anybody else. But building trust with potential clients, with business partners in the Valley for our Dutch entrepreneurs in a different culture is a bit difficult, right? How do you build trust in a culture that is really different than yours? And is there a way that Silicon Valley Bank actually helps entrepreneurs in building that trust?
Sure. So there's a couple of parts to your question there, Michael. And if we kind of unwrap it, so trust is definitely around the comfort with the founders and what they stand for and who's in their network and community. And if you want, the kind of bubble term is being used around COVID today. And so, you know, that trusted circle, that trusted bubble that surrounds the company. And so we're part of that. Silicon Valley Bank has a strong reputation with the venture community and in the ecosystem. And so for the entrepreneurs, that ecosystem, that trusted network that they're part of really, really matters. And it's every part of the process for them. So who the lawyers are, who the mentors are, who the advisors are, and each part of that builds the reputation for the entrepreneurs. So, you know, working with you, Michael, and your team is part of that and how they build trust. Working with recognized law firms who know what they're doing and are known in the Valley and known with the lawyers here, that matters. And again, we're part of that. So again, it's if you can imagine a jigsaw, and it's having the right pieces there that help build your reputation and trust.
Establishing a bank relationship is an important starting point for your business, for any business. Now, what does it take for a Dutch entrepreneur to actually open an account at Silicon Valley Bank? What's the process?
So it's actually pretty straightforward, is the honest answer, Michael. And compared to opening an account in Europe, you'll find it faster and hopefully a little bit more straightforward. We do this every day of the week for companies from around the world. So we've got a pretty streamlined process at this point. And again, we've got thousands of companies from around the world that we work with here in the States as well. So the starting point is you're going to incorporate in the States, and off the back of that, you then get a tax identification number. Most companies here in the States or coming from overseas will incorporate as a Delaware corporation and then get a tax identification number. You have to have that, what they call the TIN, to be able to open any banking account here in the States. So once you've got that, then you're able to open an account, and you have to have the account so that you're able to take investor money, pay bills, etc. And so opening an account, pretty straightforward from there. It's typically a few days once that you submit the paperwork. It's all online. If you go and look at svb.com, you'll just see the information there about opening an account. And we're able to open we call multi-currency accounts. So you can have euro, pound, dollar accounts, etc. there. So it's pretty straightforward.
Thanks. Well, you've been in the Bay Area for many years. And
you're calling me old, Michael?
No, you've been there for many years, so you really know what's going on. And if we talk about cultural differences, what's your take on that? I mean, what are some of the pointers in terms of the differences between Europe and the US? Approaching a bank or approaching a potential customer? Any insights?
Yeah, so I've had the experience of working in the UK and Germany for many years. And so in some ways, the States is less direct than you would see, for example, in Germany, but it's also more open. And certainly here, if you're an entrepreneur, people are, particularly the investors, always interested in meeting great entrepreneurs and building the network. So my experience personally as well has been, it is actually easier to break in here, and people are curious and will give you the time of day and will meet you. But you do need to find an entree into conversations here. There's many more networking events historically, there's been more networking events. Now it's all online. But I think it is a very open society here. It's very multicultural. You've got investors and colleagues and staff from around the world here. So it is something where you can get access maybe more easily than you might be expecting. But I think that people also are looking at the scale of ambition here in a different way than you would see in Europe. And I think it's about how ambitious you are, and are you really going to make me a lot of money? And people are playing for a bigger stake here. And again, I exaggerate, but I think my own experience had been, and it is a little dated because I know Europe's changed, often it was, how little can we invest to help you build a company, as opposed to how much do you need to build a world-class company here? And I just think that the ambition levels are higher here, but it's also about speed, and things move faster. And so you've got to be able to move at the speed of the environment here. And so if you don't reply to an email for a week from an investor, that kind of gives them an indication that you're not moving at the speed they're expecting. So you absolutely can be ambitious. You absolutely can push here and leverage relationships, but you do absolutely need to be moving at a faster pace than you might see in Europe as well.
Now, the opportunity to work with corporates is, of course, a major opportunity. I mean, a lot of our Dutch SMEs and entrepreneurs want to work with corporates as potential partner or as potential clients. Now, Maaike has worked with a lot of these corporates in different capacities from different sectors. And it is a great opportunity, but it's also a challenge, right? You're coming from the Netherlands now, you deal with the big corporates in the US. Maaike, can you share maybe some of the do's and the don'ts from your perspective in how to collaborate and pitch your business for these corporates? For example, how do they actually buy business from potential vendors?
Yes, yeah, that was definitely some big learnings in the beginning when I just arrived here. In the Netherlands, somehow I was just able to call a specific corporate or to get in touch with the individual I wanted to speak with. And then we exchanged some emails, and then 3-4 weeks later, I had an appointment, and that worked really well. What I noticed in the Bay Area when I just arrived, that just didn't work. I really learned that the direct approach, like, I want to speak with you, can we have a conversation, wasn't that successful as it was in the Netherlands. What I learned that I had to do, and I think Gerald mentioned that as well, the network effect here is so crucial. It's so important. You need to know someone else basically who wants to make the introduction. That is the fastest way to get inside the organizations where you want to go. So who do you know? What is their network? And are they willing to make an introduction for you? Also, when that introduction is made, the appointment basically takes place the same week. Where in the Netherlands it easily can take a month, or sometimes I see Dutch organizations that come over to the Bay Area and they say, I'm going to be there 2 months from now, I want to schedule some appointments. And I tell them, don't schedule your appointments right now. That's useless. You need to wait till it's shorter, like it's 1 or 2 weeks before you actually will arrive. And make your list, of course, and know who you want to be introduced with. But the actual scheduling usually takes place right now. So when you reach out, when you're in touch, it's like, can we meet 2 days from now? Can we meet tomorrow? Today, of course, it's over Zoom. But before that, what I also found very interesting is that these meetings barely ever take place in their office. I mean, also that in the Netherlands, you meet each other in the office. Here you meet people in coffee shops. I think I've seen all the coffee shops by now here in the Bay Area. Also the way you dressed. I mean, I was certainly overdressed in the beginning. Then I, in my jacket and everything, all well dressed, and then you meet the head of innovation of a company that I wanted to meet with, and he's just sitting in his sweatpants, a t-shirt, and some sneakers, and that's it. And so I think that was in the beginning something I really had to get used to. But that works really well. The other thing is about that speed. It's about the immediate conversation, but it's also about the immediate follow-up. I think that's another thing that I learned here. Sometimes in the Netherlands, or I see the people that come over, they have all these meetings in a week and they only follow up on that conversation when they're back home or when they're on the plane back home. Do that follow up within 24 hours, because very often what can happen is that another meeting or another referral takes place in that same week. And so make sure you have the space and the time to do that. The speed is just way higher here compared to what we're used to in the Netherlands.
Wow, good. Very valuable insights. Hey, you also travel a lot in the US because, I mean, you have your business on the West Coast, but also on the East Coast. Do you see any differences between the two?
Yes, there are definitely big differences between the East and West Coast. Normally, I spend about a week a month in New York. Lovely city, of course, to be. Not at this moment, and no travel. I mean, you officially could travel in the United States, but there's absolutely no use to do that. Difference between the culture, East Coast, West Coast. I must say, I really like the East Coast culture. I think it's more direct compared to the West Coast. There is definitely, people are more straightforward, in your face in New York than they are here. People seem to be more in a rush. However, when it gets to new things, when it gets to taking risks, I feel the West Coast is definitely more the place to be. People here are more open to new stuff, to crazy stuff, and like, hey, that's new, I haven't seen that, I like it. And where in New York, it's more like, I don't know yet, is someone else already doing this? And so it's way more the traditional corporate way of working, way of thinking. And here on the West Coast, it's more agile, it's lean startup, it's doing all that innovation that you see here.
You speak from experience. You made the jump from the Netherlands to the US. When you started the company in San Francisco, what were some of the obstacles? What the learnings that if you would do it again, what are the mistakes that you've made that you would now avoid? Some tips there.
Yes. So, well, one of the things I definitely would repeat, which was highly successful, is I immediately had a local business partner here on the ground, Justin. Without Justin, I don't think we could ever have been successful here, because, I mean, Justin didn't maybe not know as much about our methodology, our way of working, what we're for. He didn't have that specific experience, but he had the local network. So together we could really make this work by going out there together, knowing the people, me knowing the strategy, knowing what we wanted to do. That combination was really, really strong. So definitely don't just come over here on your own from the Netherlands, plant your flag and think it's going to work. That won't happen. And so do find those locals. finding people is tough, especially from a Dutch perspective. You're used to the Dutch salaries. So I really was a little bit slow in understanding that I basically had to double salaries levels here especially here in San Francisco. So that took a while to get over that hurdle for myself, that is different. But get those local people in as fast as you can. That would be my biggest tip.
Do you think corporates in the US are interested in meeting Dutch entrepreneurs and to buy from them?
I think that doesn't matter. I think actually it was funny because I was also asked to speak for 500 people, and I told them like, hey, maybe you want my US colleague who has at least a US native, doesn't have the Dutch accent. And they're like, no, we actually want you because you have a different accent and we're talking innovation here. So it sounds new and exotic. So we actually want to have someone that's not from the US just to give us a different perspective. So that turned out to work really well for us. The fact that it was different, that it was not American. So in our case, that worked really well.
Thanks, Maaike. Thanks for those insights. I want to talk to Thomas as well, because he can really share his insights as a startup founder in San Francisco. Everybody knows about setting up a startup in San Francisco. There's a lot of buzz around that. But Thomas, you have been in the Bay Area for more than 8 years, and you built your own company, a very successful one, I must add. Can you tell us your story? How did you start? What were your main obstacles? What mistakes did you make that the SME should try to avoid? And any other tips for starting a company in San Francisco?
Yeah, I can give you a bit of the rundown here. So I've been in the US or in San Francisco for 8 years, but only started a company 3 years ago. And with any good company, you only start something that you first of all believe in, and it probably also solves a problem that you are faced with in your daily life. So, most successful companies are there to essentially scratch an itch or solve an issue that has been around but wasn't really approached the right way. So, our company is an energy trading platform, and what we do is we connect flexible providers of demand with wholesale markets. It's a kind of like Stripe for energy, and our sector really needed a universal platform that tied all those resources together. So it really came from an idea that was, starting to be needed to be challenged in our market. Me and my co-founder, Remco, started 3 years ago with an idea, and I can mirror both Maaike and Gerald. That is, the Silicon Valley ecosystem really helped us launch. I've been through the process of incorporating a company here in the US, and indeed it only takes $100 and you're set up within a day. I went through the same process in the Netherlands, and then it takes a couple of weeks in a notary, and much more work. So it is easier to do business here. And of course, nowadays with everything being in the cloud, you can use off-the-shelf technology. It really doesn't have that much of an impact. And companies like Silicon Valley Bank, together with Stripe, for instance, really have a one pack off-the-shelf solution. You go to Stripe Atlas, and you'll be incorporated with a bank account at Silicon Valley Bank with your tax ID number at the end of the day. We actually went through a service that was started by through Y Combinator called Clerky, and overall, I think it took $400 to be a C Corp Delaware with a registration in California and a tax number and a bank account, all with at the end of the day.
Early this year, you raised a large funding round. I think your Series A. Can you give us a bit of insight on pitching to VC investors in Silicon Valley and some of the differences that you see with Dutch-based VCs?
What became pretty clear is that indeed people move really fast here and are expecting that you run a process. And with the process, what I mean is you've set specific time goals, really bookended the time you want to spend on the process of raising, all the way from starting to create your materials to actually signing a term sheet and getting funded. And it's really important to make sure that everyone else follows that process as well. Exactly where in the 3 or 4 months that you probably want to take to raise a Series A are you, and at what moment in time do you need input from VCs or from other partners that are part of that selection. And what is really interesting is that people are very frank and straightforward. They'll ask you, where in the process are you, to be sure that they either can catch up, or maybe the round size is not large enough. People are very straightforward because they don't want you to waste their time, but also they don't want to waste your time. And I've been really pleasantly surprised that that process is well understood on every side of the business here. And while in European VCs, it's sometimes, it's not very clear if someone is actually interested and can catch up with your fundraising cycle.
There's a lot of talent available in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, but talent is extremely expensive, right? And people move around a lot. How did you deal with that, and how do you deal with this today? Is this an issue for you and your company?
So we're in the energy sector, and it's still pretty traditional, right? Our counterparties are large utilities that that expect you to show up on meetings, and Zoom is a new tool for them that they weren't really used to work with. That all changed in the last couple of months, we are a full remote first company right now. What did really also help us that wasn't available 5 years ago is the enormous amount of tools that you can use to keep a distributed company. So we're all the communication is done on Slack. We have Asana to manage our tasks and projects, which means that everyone anywhere in the world can access it. And that also helped us really recruit talent that is not necessarily based in the Bay Area. So right now, actually, we have more people outside the Bay Area than we have in. We're about 30 persons right now, and only 10 in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so it gives you a lot of flexibility. If you would speak to SME entrepreneurs and startup entrepreneurs, what would be your best advice for those that are aiming to set up shop in the Bay Area? Is there a golden nugget from your perspective?
It is important to have a local presence, especially during a fundraising process. And what I've noticed that many VCs, until a couple of years ago, were really skittish to do business with non-US domiciled companies. That's not really the case anymore. It makes a lot more sense, though, to have an established company in the jurisdiction of the US laws of the US. What is really helpful is that in the moment that you start fundraising, make sure that you're here, or at least have a cadence of coming here. Of course, currently with Corona, that is a little tough, but when those restrictions lift, I would advise you to have a local presence because that makes life so much easier.
How long did your fundraising take?
So from start to end, I would say 5 months. And that's kind of average. I've seen Series A, Series B close in less than 2 months if it's a really hot product, but sometimes it can linger on. I'd advise you to set a day in the future when you hit a certain lowest threshold of capital that you can muster, and then work backwards to when you have to start that fundraising. Just take 6 months and have a really good process. Make sure you have a list of VCs that you know that are interested in your sector and know what you're about, and just start prioritizing them. Put a category of ABC of which VCs you want to talk to. Practice your pitch. That's really important. The first 5 minutes are the most important part of the pitch. The moment that you have your hook in 5 minutes, then it actually becomes an interesting discussion, and otherwise you lost the attention. So practice the pitch. Make sure you have a good list of VCs that you want to visit, and make sure that you are pretty clear about what the process is, when you expect term sheets in, when due diligence happens, and that really makes the process work best.
Thanks, Thomas. I think great use case, the way you've set up the company and the success you guys have been having the last few years. And Maaike, Thomas gave his perspective on setting up shop in the Bay Area and how he did that. Gerald gave the banker's perspective, and that it's pretty easy, open up the bank account, and from there also start to set up the tax ID and really start your business from a Delaware perspective. Did you actually follow the same path?
I must say, setting up a company and especially opening a bank account was a nightmare for me. So that's why I was like, hey, that's a different experience that I had, because I've been setting up legal entities in the Netherlands, well, actually all over the world. For me, the Netherlands was super easy, everything online, and it happened very fast. But in the US, it was actually reverse. Setting up the legal, and the reason for that, and I think that's the difference with, for example, Thomas, when I was setting up the legal entity here, I did not live here in the United States. That was my biggest issue, because that meant I couldn't do the online setting up of legal entities, because now I live here. I've set up other legal entities here, indeed, super smooth online. But living in the Netherlands, wanted to set up here, that did not work, purely because of the reason I did not have a social security number. I managed to get a lawyer who did set it up for me. So I got my TIN number, as Gerald mentioned. That was relatively easy, but still I could not open a bank account, even though I had my identity numbers for the legal entity. I didn't have a social security number. And so that's another tip and another reason why you have to be present local and really local, have that social security number. Once you have that, everything is easy. But I was setting it up while I was still living in the Netherlands. That was a bit of a nightmare.
Hey, Maaike, you also help entrepreneurs and corporate executives to think strategically, right? About the business, about defining their business models, what are the go-to-market strategies. Sometimes they need to pivot. We're in the midst of this crisis. Any advice for companies during these times? Do you think COVID will have a big impact of doing business in the US and in the Bay Area? Are there opportunities?
I really, this is such an excited period. I mean, it's scary and it's awful what's happening around the world, but from a strategic design perspective, it's super excited. It's really interesting to see what's happening around the world, how the companies, how leadership is actually reacting to this. And I think Gerald mentioned it as well, the digital transformation, all of a sudden you see happening. For example, this morning I spoke with one of my clients, and already 4 years ago, we were creating new strategies for actually virtual inspections. That's their business. And they always said it could not be done. Obviously, now all of a sudden it can be done and it is accepted. So that is really amazing to see those things that people have been thinking about now actually are making it happen. Also, surprisingly enough, as a consultant, we're still super busy because you do see that companies are like, okay, this is the time, this is the moment, I need to grab this opportunity to really change. So people start to think different, and that brings massive opportunities. So definitely don't freeze, but do the reverse and go even stronger into innovation and testing new things. The moment is there right now.
Yeah, because what I notice in the Netherlands that a lot of entrepreneurs are so much focused on today's business and trying to survive this, they really forget to think forward, right? What's beyond all of this? And some of them say, well, you know, the internationalization part, let's put that on the back burner. But maybe this is the opportunity to think really ahead and make that move even faster than you thought of before. Thanks, Maaike. Gerald, we've talked about VC funding. You were saying, hey, investors are still out there. We had Thomas, he's an example of a successful round that he did with his company. But are there also alternatives available for VC funding? Because not every company from the Netherlands will be able to raise these funds from VCs. And what are the alternatives then? And is there a role for Silicon Valley Bank?
Sure. So I mean, there's two ways to think about it. So you've got the equity investors, and there's probably more choices today than ever before, depending on what stage you're at. And so you've got pre-seed investors, seed investors, Series A, early stage, all the way through to large investors. And you've got firms like some of the hedge funds, some of the private equity guys who are coming in and investing in late stage private companies as well. And then Maaike had also talked a little bit about corporate investors, and that's a very material part of the ecosystem today. And depending which sector you're in, it's anywhere from 25 to 40% of the capital. And that hasn't gone away. The corporates have been very consistent and certainly a big part of it. And then in addition to the equity investors, there's debt. And at the early stage, we talk about venture debt. And that effectively is a non-dilutive form of capital that will potentially help you extend the runway. And we're certainly seeing a lot of companies add debt to the balance sheet today. And we're at the historic lowest interest rates probably any of us have ever seen. And so, actually, debt is not going to dilute your ownership as an investor in the company. It's not going to dilute management's ownership. And so debt does have a role to play here. And again, it potentially helps you get another couple of quarters of runway. And that's really important today as well.
Yeah, the focus on the runway. Now, if we talk about your favorite motto for the Bay Area, listening to Maaike, she was talking about how the network is important. So you could say, well, the network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. What would be your favorite model of doing business in the Valley?
I think Maaike alluded to it a little bit, and I think right now it is never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think that's really going to create a lot of opportunity for people. I think it is a way for businesses to do business differently today. I do think the investors are thinking differently in terms of how they do deals. Everything is virtual. How they meet deals and entrepreneurs is different today. I think location, oddly enough, becomes less important today because everyone's remote. And so I also think that the customers in the world today are buying technology in a different way, and I do think that also creates opportunity for people. So I'm very optimistic about what we see, and I do think that there will be some amazing things that come off the back of this crisis.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gerald. Thomas, can I go back to you? Because if I translate what you were saying, it was sort of, if you want to play local, you got to be local. That was one clear message from your perspective. Other insights you want to share with us?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll add my motto to this situation. So, of course, Silicon Valley is known for move fast and break things. That has a bit of a negative connotation right now. So, I'll change it to fail fast. And I think that is really important to understand that you should be able to iterate your business model quickly and adapt to new situations, test them out. There's tons of ways to do testing of your product, A/B testing, different focus groups, and make sure that you get to product market fit quickly. And if that doesn't work, make sure you iterate and change tech swiftly. It's totally acceptable that 6 months after you raised a round, you might have thrown some of your core principles out of the window, and because something else came up that made your product market fit work better. So I'll say that fail fast and iterate.
Great, thank you for that. Maaike, you want to give us your personal motto as well?
Yes, I'm gonna go on what Thomas said as well, the fail fast, and the way I describe that often is a no analysis paralysis. I think in the Netherlands, we tend to spend a lot of time behind our laptops in our office and coming up with the perfect plan. But what it is about is, no, it's about speed. Get out there, do it, test it, fail fast indeed, and then make it better. So don't try to make it perfect. Speed is much higher valued here than the most beautiful plan, right? I think that's a mindset that really needs to shift if you want to be successful here.
With that, I want to thank all the speakers. Thank you, Maaike. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Gerald, for all all your insights and your tips and tricks for doing business in the Bay Area. Participants, hope you enjoyed this session, and we are looking forward to meeting you at the Digital Mission in a few weeks. Thank you very much.